Hi, my wonderful composition students. I want to apologize in advance that I can't be here on Wednesday. My son's injury is worse than I thought it was, and I need to take care of that. So I'm giving you this brief video lecture so that you will at least have some sense of where we're moving in the class and where the trajectory is going. And I feel awful, but it's just things come up. So I was looking at chapter 4, and I told you, of course, in class on Monday, just ignore the boxes if you don't want to look at the boxes. But the boxes actually can be helpful in terms of if you work, in terms of bullet points or in terms of point by point when you're learning something. Like I said, look up Howard Gardner, Multiple Intelligences, and you will find very interesting information about how students, the whole student, as we were talking about in class, learns in or has each student has a different strength. Our brains are not wired the same way as we were speaking about in class. Our brains are not wired the same way. We all approach different disciplines in different ways, which is probably why all of you chose different majors when you applied to college or when you entered into college, the college environment. You probably chose different disciplines because that's where you believed your strength was. On a side note, probably some of you chose majors because, and this is not wrong, you were concerned, you had economic concerns or you had employment concerns, and you chose your major so that you could get the training you needed in order to get the best job possible so that basically so that you could survive in this economy. A lot of us choose majors, including people in education, because education is really not that profitable. There are a lot of jobs in education. It's a great field to go into. I do it, of course. Um, but most of us choose education majors because we're passionate about making a difference in the world of whatever age level we're considering. So I was looking at chapter 4, the 9 core learning attributes of digital generations. Now this is interesting because that means that you're probably this wasn't quite. This is like presaging or looking forward into the future of where uh, education is headed, in what the authors are referring to as the age of disruption. Why is it called the age of disruption? Well, probably because it was disrupted by a pandemic, by the emergence and advancement and progression and pervasion of technologized, sorry, Vogel, the emergence of more technology. Let's just put it that way. It is now completely instrumental in our world, and probably many would argue that you cannot survive without technology. I've discussed this with many people. And the funny story about me losing my phone or dropping my phone, I think I spoke with some students about this. And knowing, even though I don't, really have much care for a phone, I couldn't do without it. It's something like almost as um, critical as food, clothing, and shelter. If you don't have a phone, um, it's interesting that the uh, technological giants and the corporations made it live without a phone. Literally, like, I mean, you could survive. Yeah, you could. I mean, you probably wouldn't die. But in order to exist and function and be a part of the society that we live in, you have to have a phone. So like I said, I was looking at the 9 core learning attributes. Digital learners prefer receiving information from multiple hyperlinked digital sources. Am I doing that in my class? No, I'm not. We're not there yet. However, I have experienced in the elementary schools. Now there are slides, there are ways to integrate both teacher and student, how to type things into boxes that show up on a brand new smartboard, upgraded. It's interactive learning, like those interactive video games. We understand, the video games have influenced education as education has influenced video games. We've discussed this. Digital learners prefer parallel processing and multitasking. Multitasking is an interesting concept because while we encourage multitasking in our culture, and if you succeed at multitasking, you are you know competent individual in your field. However, when we emphasize multitasking, we also are in there's a precarious there's a danger in falling into some kind of ADD or ADHD understanding of how to process things. So you might say that an ADD or ADHD diagnosed individual would be better at multitasking. It might also drive them crazy. I think Abby was talking about in class how we all need psychotherapists more in our culture now or in our society, because mental illness is more accepted, or mental illness is more something that is on the rise. I'm not sure why that is, except that it's a response to the society that we're living in. And you have to kind of think about what is dominating our society at the present time. So we're kind of thinking about, that in the sense that why do we need this multitasking, this digital learning? Digital learners prefer processing pictures, sounds, color, and video before they process text. Why is that? Text? Yeah, okay. Digital learners, text. That means we're de-emphasizing reading an actual text, right? This I would not consider to be technically, this is more of almost like a digital text in book form. The way that it's designed. The book that you're reading toward the end of the semester, the Virus in the Age of Madness, is a narrative book. It is a book written in paper with a cover. But we're talking now about that is now disappearing from the educational environment. And I will say that also because what I've experienced in the elementary schools is that there are these new programs called Raz Kids, Epic Reading. So all of the reading that students are doing now is online, digital learning, digital reading. We all know about ebooks and audiobooks. What has happened to our brains that we can no longer pick up a book and read it? Now, some of you do. I know from talking to you that some of you actually read books from traditional books. Let's just call them traditional books. But more and more, and when we enter our research lessons, when I talk about research for your research papers, all of the research that you're going to be doing is going to be more, there's going to be more facility in doing it when you do it through the library databases, through Google Scholar. You're going to find papers, you're going to find journal articles, you're going to find essays, all online, completely accessible, and more so than you would find if you went to the actual Milton Library and checked out a book, because the availability and the book, the sources that you're going to find in the library are now very, it's like a lot of the stuff is obsolete and not something that you can access as easily online in something like JSTOR, the database, or any of the other databases, which I will be after the break. Digital learners prefer to network and collaborate simultaneously with many others. And we discussed this in class. Yes, digital learners prefer, okay, we're talking about collaboration. Some of my education majors were talking about collaboration. For instance, Elena, We were talking very different education in Manhattan, fine, whatever. Private schools, very different. We're talking about group learning. Very little of that happens now these days because unless it's happening online. And like we were talking about in class, yes, a lot of people prefer me being in the classroom because Zoom learning can be effective if it's done in the right way. I try to facilitate it the right way. It's not always successful and sometimes inefficacious, basically because students are not engaged that way. So, do we have to question the argument or what this book is presenting in terms of how digital learning is supposedly supposed to be better or a step up from the way we used to do things, or that acronym that the authors use, the way we used to do it. It's somehow this is supposed to improve or augment the our understanding of the pedagogy that was. However, is it effective? I mean, that's what you would consider when you write your research paper on this, when you do a project on this topic. Do you argue against this book or for it? Is digital learning better or not? What I'm receiving, the responses I'm receiving from the majority of my students, I mean, this is like kind of like almost post-pandemic. We're about to take our masks off, after the break. Is that digital learning is not so effective. And we also discussed in class how the fear or the hesitation maybe that some people have entering into the educational field, that we are going to no longer be required or be gratuitous, which means unnecessary, superfluous, right, to the learning that people can do on their own online. We've heard about it's called Babbel, Go Babbel or something like that, where you can learn different languages, Grammarly, just about any topic you want to learn about, you could find on YouTube, on a documentary. More and more people, like this book is arguing, are visual learners, auditory learners. So it's easier for a student, even at the elementary school level, to watch a read aloud and listen to a read aloud rather than the teacher sitting in front of the room with a book, whether it has pictures or not, and reading it with a voice that has expression, and stopping every once in a while to explain or ask questions or define a word, which is, I think, well, of course I'm from the old school, but I think that's more effective than just sitting passively and watching a read aloud. So much more of education, although we're understanding it as being more interactive, it's not being more. The book is arguing, yes, to be more interactive, but it's not arguing that we should be more interactive with our peers or our classmates and the teacher. It's arguing that we should be more interactive with the technology itself. So I'm wondering about that because, we discussed way back when we started reading this book and at the beginning of the semester, what is education preparing us for? To interact with, I don't know, I mean, I'm not a prophet or anything, but, to interact with robots. Abby, they already have therapists online who are automated AI voices, who will say to you, how was your day? Well, somebody insulted me today and I feel kind of sad. And then the AI voice says, well, why do you feel so sad? Well, because, it kind of made me feel very anxious. Do you think you need an anxiety pill? Well, I'm kind of against medication. Well, how else can we deal with this? Right? And there's a conversation that goes back and forth. The problem with that is that AI, or artificial intelligence, is an algorithm and does not understand nuance. You know that from Siri and Alexa. If you ask it a stupid question or a complicated question, so let's change that. A complicated question that it doesn't understand, it's not going to give you the right answer. And there really is no right answer. If you ask Siri or Alexa or whoever you're talking to on your computer, even if it was as a simplest question as if it doesn't, if you want to be like long-winded, if it doesn't rain tomorrow, what's the weather going to be like? Um, would that artificial intelligence know the answer to that question? If you ask the automated artificial intelligence voice, how many casualties are there going to be in the Ukraine by April 5th? Is that artificial intelligence going to know the answer? No, people don't even know that answer. Real people, right? So, moving on. Digital learners unconsciously read text on a page or screen in a fast pattern. Okay, I'm just going to encourage you guys to read also the essay. Write this down. I can write it on my board if I have it. I'm going to need chalk. My chalkboard's up there. But it's called Is Google Making Us Stupid by Nicholas Carr. It's online. It's available to you. Write it down. I'll say it again. Is Google Making Us Stupid by Nicholas Carr. It was written probably more than a decade ago, but certainly presaged where we are now. It talks about brain plasticity, the fact that we can't sustain our attention for long periods of time, for long, lengthier reading assignments. And it's really due to, like I said, the brain plasticity of when the technology was introduced and how it changed kind of the structures of our brain and how we understand communication or reading, which is primarily, if you understood my devolve theory with pictures, we now only understand the meaning of things, or we only derive meaning of our experiences, or of anything that, something that we want to attest to, by picture, by photograph, right? And lots of times it's just a photograph of ourselves, but it's how we're, and we also understand pictures as emojis, emoticons. That's how we're feeling. So we no longer really care about memoir or about, reading long works of literature. I personally think, and this is just what I was thinking about this morning, is that in this day and age, whether we're in a complete crisis or not, whether you perceive it that way or not, I think this is the most critical time that literature needs to be distributed and taught in schools and in universities and whatever educational establishment you're thinking about. Literature tells truths about the human condition, about humanity, about the human experience that people are just not really thinking about right now. And it's not your generation's fault. It's the fault of the kind of direction that society went in. Like post-industrial revolution, when we entered the technological revolution, and like I said, we think we're evolving. Don't let that be a, that, don't let that be your perception. That could be a misperception. We may not be evolving. Like I said, I wanted to show you the video Surviving Progress. I believe, I'm going to check online because I think it's on YouTube, and I will send you the link for Wednesday to watch. I will also put up a discussion forum so that you can answer some of these questions. There were four more questions, four more attributes. Digital learners prefer just-in-time learning. Digital learners are looking for instant gratification and immediate rewards, as well as simultaneously deferred gratification and delayed rewards. We're on a reward system here, reward and delayed rewards. We get that all the time. I don't know if you guys got it in elementary school, but high school it kind of drops off. But in college, we consider a reward a good grade. Delayed rewards, and there's a lot of negotiation and strategy going on. Digital learners are transfluent between digital and real worlds. Now that's important. is that possible? Or maybe it's possible now, but is it becoming more and more impossible? Don't know. Digital learners prefer learning that is simultaneously relevant, active, instantly useful, and fun. That's a very interesting one, and I'm going to leave you off with that number 9. Um, that's from chapter 4. But just because of what Elena was talking about in class today with the collaborative learning, yeah, it has to be fun. But what we understand of as fun these days is, sitting in front of a screen. That's fun. Okay. Well, I was kind of thinking about how I used to play in little ponds and look at tadpoles and catch frogs and swim in lakes and, I didn't go fishing, but, I mean, just things like, that, are considered unacceptable now, like getting yourself all muddy. Um, you know, um, Things like, you know, running around the town, knocking on people's doors. We all have heard this story already before so many times in documentaries and through, older generations. But I just wanted to kind of emphasize those 9 attributes because I think there's something to think about. So I'm going to put a discussion board up with a guiding question um, on Wednesday during class time, which is between 12 and I believe 1. um, I intend to enter into the discussion if I can, and try to uh, interject where I can. And I will also, though, send you the link to Surviving Progress if it is available on YouTube. And I think that's it. Again, I apologize for the emergency. And otherwise, I will see you on Friday. So read chapters. I believe it's, what is it, 6? I think it's only 6. It's not 7 and 8. Let me just check to make sure. 6, 7. Yeah. 7 and 8 are over break. That's what you're reading over break. So we're just talking, we're discussing chapter 6. We can readdress chapter 5 on Friday. I promise I will be there. And I will also be available asynchronously for office hours here and there via Zoom. I will be in my office from 10 to 11 on Friday morning if you have anything you want to discuss. And just to reemphasize, your papers will be graded by tomorrow, your first papers. So look forward to your grade. If it's not up right away, don't worry. It should be up by 5 o'clock in the evening at the latest. So you will get your papers graded. I hope you watched this lecture or talk or whatever it was. And just keep thinking on these issues. And I will post that stuff and get it to you as soon as possible. Okay. See you Friday.